The fest might be over, but ZBR summer is still in full swing with the repress of the Every Day is Someone's Special Day 12-inch by Ulf and the tape press of There Are Collectives That Devour Souls by Excrucius, and that's pronounced Excrucius, as you can hear straight from the Dave man himself.
Excrucius!
Head to ZegamaBeachRecords.com for more. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, a couple things. First of all, I'm doing a $5 sale on many of Middleman Records tapes, 12 inches, 7 inches, zines, all kinds of other things. Go to the Middleman Records Instagram page at middle.man.records over there on IG and check out the list of things we've got on sale, as I've recently been hit with a debt claim and have to come up with a lot of money pretty quickly. I racked up a whole lot of debt doing this label, and I wouldn't necessarily change a thing, but these things do come back to haunt us sometimes. I appreciate all your help. Of course, to keep going, keep moving forward, and keep the lights on, there's always the Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where I routinely post sneak peeks of stuff that I've been working on, as well as daily pages from the comics and zines that I do, as well as, of course, you can read the huge backlog of stuff that's already there. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. Thanks for checking it out. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Bound by Eyewash, featuring my new pal, Rachel Hines, on bass and vocals. The song is a standalone single and a preview of things to come, which you can find on all the streaming networks now.
I would say one of the first bands that I listened to that I thought really, I want to do something like this. This is really unique and this makes me want to play music is probably Co-Alter of the Deepers. I just think that they do something really unique. I really like how genre bending they are. They've got hardcore influence moments. They have poppy moments. They use the synth. They have different vocalists and different songs, and I just thought that was really cool. I really like the way they do that. They have so many different styles within such a trailing off, but I don't know. I just thought that seemed like something that I know a lot of people do stuff like that, but I wanted to see if I could do something like that. Something that I would use synthesizer, but using. Also still doing the grungy, shoegazy thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who'd you say that was? I'm not familiar.
Co-Alter of the Deepers. They're they're a Japanese band. I think that they started maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I don't know if they're really active anymore. I mean, I've never known them to tour since I've known about them, but they definitely have put out a good amount of music. I think they remastered something recently, so I guess they're still kind of putting out stuff, but I'm not really sure how active they are these days.
Mm-hmm. You said that there might have been more than one, but that was the big one. What other stuff was influencing you, when you first decided to make the jump into making music?
Yeah. It's probably a basic answer, but I've always loved Title Fight. I feel like I never got to see them, which always really made me upset because like I remember being in high school being like, oh, I missed this tour. I'll just catch the next one. And there never was a next one.
Yeah.
So that was like a bummer. I don't know. I just love what they do. Maybe like controversial opinion. I like all of their albums, including like the shoegazy or newer one. I know not everyone is into that, but I liked the way they evolved their sound. They have like crazy good energy. They're just like a classic to me. They were like definitely one of the first bands that I liked that I was like, oh, I like need to go to shows and see this kind of thing, even though I didn't like get to see them in particular. Still hoping one day maybe they'll come back. Who knows?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, not that they're necessarily comparable, but I mean, how many times has like Have Heart or something done a reunion, you know?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. You were putting sort of a 4 years like timeline on like your desire to make music and like where you really started like listening to music more like voraciously or whatever, or you used, you threw that timeline out there briefly anyway. But were you playing an instrument like before all of this, like casually, or is it something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I was like a band kid. So, I mean, I played oboe, or I started playing clarinet in third grade, oboe in fourth, saxophone in fifth grade. So, I was like, I was a woodwind person for a really long time. So, I did that a lot. I did it like through the first like year or so of college, and then kind of stopped doing that. So, I was like always musically involved at some point in my life. It was always important to me to be playing something musically or performing. And then in college, I started playing guitar, not like super seriously, but just like for fun, just to play songs I liked. But I never really thought that I would actually do anything with it because I don't know. I guess I just felt like, oh, I'm too late to this, which obviously now I don't think is true. But then like, I guess what changed like 4 years ago for why I like said that was I guess like I started to make more friends that did that, like that were in bands and that made music of their own and performed. I was like, oh, like if these people can do it, I can probably do it. Like I understand music. I already kind of knew guitar. So I had like a general idea of like how writing songs would go. And then I picked up bass because I don't know, it just seemed a little bit more realistic for me. To be able to actually perform on bass. I don't know. I definitely have let my guitar playing suffer a little bit since I started playing bass. But yeah, I guess that's like what I was doing before 4 years ago. And then it kind of just like slowly evolved into me always like wanting to play music somehow, even if it's not like necessarily like, playing in the symphony or the jazz band anymore.
Mm-hmm. When you were younger, was there a reason that you kept sort of switching instruments? Were you like, just like, were you bored of one thing, or were you kind of like, I want to get a little bit of info on like all this stuff? Was it like
Yeah, more of the latter, I would say. I mean, I just started playing clarinet because my mom had one. Like, she played it in the 70s, like in elementary school. She didn't play it for that long, so we just had it in the house. And I just like thought it'd be cool to play it. And then when I did band, I guess I was doing okay, and my band director was like, hey, I got this used oboe, like, do you want to try it? And I was like, sure. Like, it wasn't really something I ever picked. It just kind of like fell into my lap, and then I like grew to like it because not many people play it. So it was like I got to do like a lot of fun stuff with it. And then I started playing saxophone so that I could like be in jazz band and marching band because I like always liked jazz and I always wanted to play that kind of music. So it just allowed me to do pretty much everything. And like oboe, I could do like symphony orchestra. I could play with the choir. And then, with saxophone, I could do like all the competitive music stuff. So I got to do like a little bit of everything. I definitely didn't get bored of it until I just kind of transitioned more into playing guitar. Like I was into it as long as there was something to do. But, when you hit the point when it's like join a community band, I was like, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think now probably you could get in some bands like that weren't ska bands, like playing saxophone or whatever. But like maybe 4 years ago or whatever, the idea was a little less like possible. But yeah, can you play Careless Whisper?
No, that was not, I was like not that kind of guy. I was like, I don't need to learn that. I probably could figure it out, but I haven't even touched it in a couple of years now, any of my woodwind instruments, which is a shame. Like I should probably just like pull them out and see what happens. But no, I never learned Careless Whisper, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was just an intrusive brain question, that had to come out, I guess.
Of course.
When I think saxophone, I think of two things. I think of the hot dude from Lost Boys and Careless Whisper,
Yeah.
And I don't remember the name of the song from Lost Boys, so there's that. But yeah, it's I think that as many instruments as you can get your hands on and have an experience with are always going to inform, even subconsciously, like your ability to write music and play music. So I've always been just like, when I was younger, I did want to do specific things, but I was similar to you. It was like whatever opportunities presented themselves, like I took them. I didn't have always, what I wanted to do available to me. So but then later, like with eBay and whatever, and I'm like, I can buy an accordion for $18,
That's awesome.
And I'll just do it. And but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So you do play bass in the band. What has that been like as far as your like are you able to write like songs like bass first, or do you come to the band in a different way and add to the band in a different way? Or like, what's your experience been like as far as like the writing process being on bass?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I will say I definitely don't write songs bass first, just because I wish I could, but I guess since I am less experienced, it just doesn't come as naturally to me. When I write a song, I usually start either with the guitar or the synth, and then kind of build it around that. I'm like, I don't know, I like to pick a chord progression and then see what happens with it. And then usually the bass just kind of falls into place on top of it. But I mean, the way we write songs is kind of like all over the place. Like sometimes it's me, sometimes our guitarist will bring us something, and then it's just like perfectly done. Like, I don't know. I feel like when our guitarist and drummer write songs, they're like pretty thought through. Like they usually are like, they just pretty much make the whole thing. And then sometimes as we go, we change little things here and there and tweak. But usually when I write a song, I kind of just come up with like a rough idea, and I'm like, Jake on guitar, I'm like, take it away, like change this however you think like would make it more musical, because he's been playing guitar a lot longer than me. But I wish that I had like more of like the bass aptitude. I think that like being in a band with people who are really talented and have been doing this longer than me definitely has helped me learn a lot, which I think hopefully is making things better as we go. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I asked that because I'm getting ready to record drums for a project where somebody is going to write the songs on bass and then bounce them back to me, and I'll do guitars on them. And I've never been able to do that either, but I think it's fascinating because you don't. I mean, the bass is such a. I don't know how else to describe it. It's such a vibe instrument, right? Like it doesn't have to dictate what the rest of the instruments do, but it does sort of dictate the feeling.
For sure.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm like really excited to do that because it's like, oh, like, I could get this back and like, it could say something to me that it didn't say to this other person. And that's really interesting to me. But yeah, it's like, I don't really know if I can have a favorite instrument. Every time I'm playing an instrument, I'm like, this is my favorite. So I'm like, why don't I do this more? This is great. But yeah, it's really fun, and it's like it's such a different thing to play bass versus guitar. Do you feel like you said that you let your guitar playing like sort of go a little bit so you can focus on bass? Do you feel like you're coming at the bass in a totally different way physically than you did guitar?
Um, Not entirely. I mean, I feel like for both, I kind of like half taught myself, half watched YouTube videos, half got advice from people who knew more from me. I think that knowing, like, generally how to work around a guitar made playing bass easier for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a little, I mean, it's different. They both have things that are easier to do and harder to do, but I think it like felt more natural to me, like playing bass, like it just kind of clicked faster. I probably was a little bit more consistent with practice, whereas like guitar, like I said, when I did in college, it was just kind of like when I had time. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like with bass, I was like, I'm playing this in a band. I need to like practice every day. So I guess that's like the main difference for how I approached it.
Yeah. I asked, that might have been like a strangely worded, but it's like I feel like when I go to play guitar, like I'm I'm uh just a ball of like energy, and I'm like no 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 no, and I'm like I'm ready to go, right? But when I
Hmm.
go to play bass, I have to settle down.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like you
It
can't
does.
I can't just go and hit stuff and strum as fast as possible. I can't just go, like I have to settle down. I have to find, like I feel like bass is like there's such a fine line of like when the bass is tight on a recording versus when it's not. Like I feel like it's
Hmm.
just it's so subtle, but like the pocket or whatever is like
Right.
I have to chill. I have to be like, okay, doing bass now. Like, just relax. Like, feel this out. Think about it. Like, be present. Whereas guitar is like, let's mess stuff up. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I like to hear other people's perspectives on that. When they've sort of went back and forth. Um, so you mentioned just like briefly like uh sort of like when you were making the like decisions or whatever to where you're like, nah, it's not too late for me to like start a band and and like start writing some songs and doing all this stuff. You mentioned sort of like seeing your friends doing that, and I'm assuming this meant like when you started going to like their shows and stuff. So like,
Yeah, for sure.
um, was this like the difference between shows you had been to before that were like, um, at like bigger venues, and the difference between going to a show at like Cafe Verona or whatever, or like, what was that period like where you first started experiencing like the DIY scene like as we know it?
Yeah, let me think on that. I mean, definitely, going to house shows. I started going to like the Bushnell and like Bossing Say in college. And at first, I didn't really know anybody. I kind of just showed up and observed, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." Like at that point, like I guess it was probably like about 2018. I first started doing that. I like, I don't know, I was like, oh, this is so cool. These people have been working for this their whole lives. They've been playing their instruments for a while. Like I probably couldn't do it. But then like, I started going to enough where I started to like actually make friends and meet people. And once I like actually knew the people, I was like, oh, like not that it to like diminish anyone's talent. Like I think I just was more inspired. I was like, oh, they worked for this, but it can be done. It didn't take, like one of my friends was like, oh, I've only been playing guitar for like 2 years, and like I've been playing shows and it's been really fun. So, you should try it. I was like, oh, I guess maybe I should. So I think like getting closer with people who were playing like local shows made me realize like, oh, it's attainable. I knew enough about music. It wasn't like I was going into it like completely blind. So Yeah, it was definitely nice. Like, I don't know, getting to like have a sense of community, getting to know people gradually.
Yeah. Did
I
you feel like
think.
there was like a um with like writing songs or starting a band, did you feel like there was some part of like what you were used to seeing that felt like a barrier to entry other than like just it seems like Eyewash is like your first band.
Yes, it
And
is.
right. And it's that's something that I was like well, that can't be is sort of like
Oh,
what's going on in my brain. But now I'm like, no, it
I
is.
see.
Um because you're already like at a point like where people have to play in a lot of bands to get to a band that's like really good and has like a good production, et cetera, et cetera. So like you know there's a question there somewhere, I swear, but like
Yeah, no, I got, I mean, yeah, I think some of it's just like kind of being lucky and like knowing people who happen to already have done some of that. Like, I mean, I started the band with Alex Walsh. She's not really doing it anymore. I mean, she's still like a great friend of mine, but and that was why we decided to do things in the first place. And like, she had been in bands before, she had performed. And so, at first I felt like a lot of my confidence came from like knowing that other people knew what they were doing, and I figured I'd just kind of figure it out and get used to it as time went on, and that is kind of what happened. Like, I don't know where I was when I started. I felt like, I don't know, I was like, oh, I'm afraid I don't know how to plug this thing into the amp here, like I need someone to show me what to do. And like it kind of was like a nice buffer having like doing things with experienced people, but like I said, I like generally understand everything with like how musical things work. I mean, not to say everything, but like I had some like general background knowledge. So I don't know. I feel like I know what's important to me to make something good. And like, I don't know, everyone being on the same page about like putting a lot of effort in. Like I was like, I want to do this, but if we're going to do it, I want to make it good. Like I don't want to like not practice enough, or like when we do practice, I don't want to like screw around. Like, I don't know. I guess I went into it with the like, let's be organized type mindset, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at.
mm-hmm.
But it was definitely nice having people that knew what they were doing. I mean, other than our synth player, she also this is also her first band. She didn't really have much musical experience. So like she and I had like the organizational skills and like ideas for what we wanted, like the taste related aspects of it to be. So like I feel like a combination of that and like people who are also organized and but also experienced, I feel like that made it kind of work. And I don't know, I think some of it is just luck at the end of the day. Like I happened to meet people over the last couple of years that like wanted to do the same thing I was doing that could make things happen.
Do you feel like people in the band have sort of their roles in that, like you describe yourself as being like very organizational, and then there's like the other members that have more musical experience and stuff, so everybody sort of works together well because you all bring like your strengths and balance each other out when, where you still need that experience?
Yeah, that is, I would say that's how it works. I mean, not to underplay the work my bandmates do. I do like definitely do most of the, the moving parts. I'm generally the one answering the DMs, figuring out what shows we're going to play, stuff like that. But I mean, everyone, especially when it comes to like the performance and the songs, not like all of the other moving parts, that's definitely very collaborative. Like I rely on everybody, they all have really good ideas and want to make things happen. So, I appreciate that I'm like lucky to have like enthusiastic people that want to do things and will deal with me pushing all these things on them all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking about like not being able to, you like not always knowing like, oh, what's this aspect, like the gear or this or that or whatever, I was just thinking to myself, like, there's literally like, I can't even count how many times like a week or whatever when someone posts something in relation to like gear or whatever, and I have no idea what they're talking about. Like,
oh yeah.
and I've been doing this for a very long time. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna let imposter syndrome set in the middle of our conversation here, but it's
no,
just like,
I get what you mean though. I have that.
There's
sometimes
so
for sure.
Yeah, there's so
Like,
much. There's so much of everything that we do that is just like a learning curve,
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely like rely on our guitarist Jake for like the gear related things. Like even after this call, he works at Guitar Center. I'm gonna go drive to where he works so that he can get my bass set up for recording. Cause like I just trust him with that kind of stuff. He, has helped me with like pedals and EQing, like I know some stuff, but it's like nice, like some people having, that's someone's that's their thing. Mm-hmm. My thing is not necessarily like those specific details,
Yeah.
Which I'm getting there, I hope.
So you're in the middle of like getting ready to record now. Is this like another single or?
Yeah, I mean, not a single. We are in the middle of getting ready to record. We're hoping to do, I think, 3 songs. We actually already recorded the drums, which is exciting. So we just got to get the rest of it together, which, everyone's schedules are crazy. So we'll get there. We're trying not to put too much pressure on ourselves. Every time we've recorded, it always somehow felt really not rushed, like, we make sure it's like a good final product, but it always feels really hectic. Like there's some deadline, even though there really isn't. So trying not to let it stress me out. But yeah, we're hoping to get something out, I hope by the end of the year. But again, trying not to put too strict of a deadline on it.
Yeah. Are you a very deadline oriented person or no?
Yeah, in general, I like, I don't, if I have one in my head, then I'm like, oh, I have to do it. So I'm trying to untrain myself to think that way, especially because like I have a pretty open schedule, like just like my work hours are pretty convenient. Whereas like some of us are just not free when the rest of us are. So it makes it like more difficult. So I'm trying to learn to just like let it be, let go, and not be so like, oh my gosh, it has to be done by this.
Yeah. I just generally find that I have so many things, like there's so many moving parts to like making an album or putting like a book together, or that I work better with deadlines because I can write things down and it helps me keep track of everything. But like it's definitely a stressor that can it can create like art with like interesting results that you wouldn't have otherwise, like
Right.
because I feel like sometimes a lot of making art is like making a final decision. Like,
Right.
Does that make sense? Like, have you...
Yeah.
Like, when you're writing a song and you're like, well, we could do this or we could do that. And sometimes you go back and forth on this potential on this idea for so long that nothing ever happens. So like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's so true. That's the one thing, like, even though we don't have as strict of a deadline, I think like we're hoping for end of the year because like you said, like if you don't put a deadline on it, then like it might take you like a year to get something done that doesn't need to take that long,
Yeah.
I guess,
Yeah.
which I'm trying to avoid that.
Hmm. Is this are these three songs that you're doing, are they going to be a part of like release with Bound that you've already released, or is that like just a single that's out there and this is something different?
It's yeah, Bound's a single that's out there, and this is something different. I
Okay.
mean, Bound was written and performed by people who aren't really like in the band anymore. So we were like, okay, this is that. Let's get that out, and let's just let's record these other songs that we've been writing and playing at shows that we need to just get out before we get sick of them.
Right. So yeah, that was gonna be something else that I asked about was the first release, like, and Bound, like there's a you definitely can tell it's the same band, but there's a big
Hmm.
contrast in like sort of the overall like sound as far as like the guitars play a huge part in the first EP for sure, but like Bound feels guitar specific in a way that
Right.
the other songs didn't necessarily. um is the new stuff that you've been working on somewhere in the middle, or does like which one of
Um,
those do you think it's closer to?
I'd say probably closer to Bound overall. I mean, all of the new songs like were like written by like one was mostly me, one was mostly our drummer, one was mostly our guitarist, and then Bound was written by another different person. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
probably why it tends to sound so eclectic. I mean, we collaborate, but like I feel like when the ideas come from different people, I don't know, it's just like whatever comes out is what we get, you know?
Yeah.
We don't like have like a super specific like, oh, we should go for this kind of sound. It's like, oh, hey, I made this song. Is this an Eyewash song? It's kind of like the question sometimes somebody will ask, and we just kind of like make it work from there. And but yeah, I think like generally we're still figuring out like what we like to do and what is our thing. I think some of the EP songs maybe go along with the vibe of what we're doing. Some of them we're probably not going to make any more songs that sound like a few of them, just because like I don't know, it isn't so far we haven't,
Yeah.
not
Would
a whole
that
lot
be the
of
more laid
intention.
back sounding songs, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we all really like hardcore and hardcore adjacent things, so I think that has seeped into our influence for sure. Not to say that we like really sound hardcore, but I mean, I guess you kind of get the vibe based on the change from like the EP to Bound. There's definitely like more heavier influence, I would say.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great track. I'm looking forward to
I'm glad you
whatever
like it.
y'all do either way. It's just it's really interesting, and it made a lot of sense when you were talking about the band that influenced you, because like that EP, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the EP. I should have written it down, but
Oh, it's self-titled.
oh, okay. Well, there's that
So,
then. That's why. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, the debut EP, it's like it is really eclectic, and there are songs where it's like you're sort of like, okay, this is like pop music but with guitar, and then
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, this is guitar music with pop vocals, or
Yep.
and there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on in it, and it's like I really appreciate like how well it all works together. And
Oh, I'm glad.
like I don't think it's, like I said before, I don't think it's a jump like to be like, oh, to go from that to Bound. I think it's just like, oh, like, well, that from just like from an outsider's point of view, you could think to yourself like, well, from when they all started writing that first EP to now, yeah, there's a lot more stuff to be pissed about. So,
Yeah.
you could see how that would come out in the songs and stuff. Is that sort of part of it as well, or?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, maybe not like consciously,
Yeah.
but I mean, at least in the songs I've written, I feel like I'm more pissed off than I was when I started making music. Just about everything in life. So
Yeah.
I feel like that definitely affects the tone. Like, I don't know, when I was first writing songs, like personally, I was just kind of like seeing what came out and like trying to make whatever I could come up with work. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I want to go for this kind of vibe and it matches this feeling. So this is what the song will be about. So I think that does kind of play a role. Just like general attitudes. Whereas I think at first we definitely were a little poppier. I think we'll always be poppy in certain regards, though.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's up to the audience.
Yeah. I mean,
You can never tell.
it's one of those things. Like I'm on the record like a million times saying that like I love bands that aren't afraid to like be weird and just say like, yeah, so what? Like we have this one song that like has like a doo-wop influence or whatever, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, but I wanted to know like, you like the first EP, it's like you drop that and then there's Bound and then you've mentioned that there's been a lot of lineup changes and stuff. And so that makes sense that it's like, okay, that song sort of stands on its own because like those people aren't, with us anymore in the band.
Right.
But what like to you, what puts the like the finishing touches on like okay, 3 songs is like, let's just do these 3. You mentioned before like you don't want to get tired of them, so yeah, let's do them, let's get them out there. But is there like more to the idea of like these 3 songs work together really well for this reason? So the way that you package a release or present a release to the world, like, is there more thought to that, or is it just like they're ready, we're ready, let's go?
I don't know if my bandmates would agree, but I think that there is. I mean, I wrote the lyrics for all these songs, which before it was kind of like a mix between me and Alex who wrote the lyrics. So to me, like they all kind of go together in terms of what they mean to me. I'm not going to get too into it, but
Sure.
like generally, I mean, definitely like I feel like more, I don't want to say emotional, but I don't know. I think that they kind of go together with just like things that have been going on in my life, a lot of changes. Not all bad, but I think that to me they kind of, I don't know, they sound right together and I feel like they mean the right thing. We still haven't figured out what we're going to call the EP, so I think that'll hopefully whatever it is will kind of be whatever ties them together for me. I hope it'll kind of reflect that too. But yeah, I think that they do go together in terms of what they mean to me. I mean, they were definitely not like one of them is like we've been playing it for like probably like over a year and a half now, whereas one of them we just played for the first time like last week. So it's kind of interesting how they ended up coming together. And we actually originally were going to do a different one. And then we were like, actually, maybe we'll do this one. We'll sit on that other one longer just because it seems like they make more sense together. Yeah, I guess if that answers the question.
Yeah. It is funny how that can happen. Like there's, I mean, one of the first times I ever recorded like an LP, I wrote a song like the weekend that we went, like I went into town for the weekend to record the album, and we were practicing like beforehand, and we like wrote this song. And so we were like, back then I had some silly ideas like, oh yeah, we already have like the whole LP planned out and all the songs are in the order that I wanted them and stuff, so we should record this song, but
Yeah.
it can't go on there. So we did like a secret track, and
Oh.
that
awesome.
was the 90s and secret tracks were the thing too, right?
Right.
But like, yeah, it's funny how often I do hear that where it's just like, oh, and we wrote this song like the day before we went to the studio, or whatever.
Right.
Do you feel like
Yeah.
part of like how you're revisiting the other tracks, and so like the influence like came back around and that one came together because of that, or is it just like total coincidence in this case?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, all the songs are definitely like about people, I guess,
Okay.
so to speak. Like they're pretty specific situations for me. So I feel like that is kind of what brings them together. I mean, I guess it is kind of a coincidence, the timing of it all. With the one being more recent, like it just seemed to fit.
Yeah. And so thematically it was there, and it wasn't like the music necessarily, like as much as the theme.
Yeah, at least again, probably more to me than my bandmates. I don't even know if my bandmates know what I'm talking about, which is fine.
Yeah.
As preferred, honestly. But I think they also do like sonically sound right together. I guess we'll see once they're actually recorded, though.
You mentioned there being another song that you had sort of been like, well, we'll come back to this one.
Yeah.
Is that how you all usually like write songs and get songs ready? Is that there's sort of like a lot of ideas out there that are sort of always being worked on and evolving, but then the ones that really come together, like maybe not necessarily the easiest, but the most naturally, are the ones that you are like, okay, we're ready to do these. Like, is that the case where like it's just takes like some of these songs like a bit longer to be where you think that they're ready, and like how do you know that they're ready?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like for the one at least that I was referring to that we're like deciding to sit on, like it's pretty much a complete song. I think it's a little bit more out of left field than the other ones. I mean, with a lot of our songs, we have like this Google Drive that our drummer has put like, I don't even know how many, probably like 10 songs that are like half to fully done that we like, I've listened to and I'm like, that's cool. We'll like get back to that. But like, I kind of will just go through and I'm like, yo, wait, this one's really cool. Like, I should encourage him to push the songs on us more, but like I'll be like, oh, I want to write lyrics to this one, or and then we'll start playing it at practice. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it's like sometimes we sit on stuff because it's not fully developed, but usually I don't know. I think we are trying to come up with things that feel like they fit together, like, you know, in terms of the way they sound, and making sure that we're not too all over the place, because sometimes I do feel like we are kind of all over the place. I mean, especially like with some of our unreleased stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, as long as it's got guitars and synth, we can make it ours somehow.
Yeah, for sure. Is there an element of like, well, this song, like you obviously can't use this song as a single, because if that's the only song by Eyewash that this person has ever heard, they might not get the full picture.
Yeah, I think that we have a few songs that I would probably never put out as a single for that reason.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like it's hard to know after these next three. I don't know what our exact plan will be. Like we do have other stuff, but I don't know. The LP is like intimidating these days, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's like easy to do a bunch of little things and have like a smaller idea that's like pretty tight. But yeah, I don't know. I think that we probably will hopefully do more singles eventually. I don't know. Like it'll depend on how some of the songs we're playing now evolve. Like since our lineup's less stable, like someone will play with us and they'll make this guitar part, and I'm like, if they don't play with us anymore, is that going to change? Like, it's hard to know
Yeah.
how things will go.
Yeah. How what does the lineup of Eyewash look like now?
Well, I mean, definitely, obviously, still me. Our drummer Jack has been the same from the beginning. Our newer guitarist Jake, who I guess new, he's been in it for like a year now. To me, he feels like original. He's definitely a big part of it. And then we have Jen on synthesizer. That's like the core of us right now. We've had like, a fill-in recently. I don't know like what the future holds, just because, it's hard to know and your life is really busy how things are going. But I don't know. We'd like to hopefully find somebody to like commit full-time as a second guitarist. But, like right now we're functional with two or with one. So we can kind of make whatever work. As long as everybody's willing to put in the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's I like coming from like a someone who's like always pretty much been in screamo bands. Like it's like there's so much of like when I'm trying to do a set or whatever that it's like we can't play these songs out of context. They don't make any sense. And that's like not the same, as like necessarily what, you were talking about, where it's like you can't put this out as a single, but it kind of is, in that like you can't this is like my brain going back to 2 questions ago, but like it's like it's you were mentioning how the LP is intimidating, and so this is my brain bouncing around, and then like releasing like Bound, like I feel like that is like that's a single where you're like, yes, absolutely, this kind of shows everything that the band is capable of, and like do you feel like like not necessarily like from a stylistic standpoint, but do you try to write every song to where like it feels like its own complete thing, or is it okay in the way you write to let the songs be individual pieces of a greater narrative?
I feel like because of like the fact that, like I've said, like everybody kind of like each song has come about in a different way. I feel like they all kind of are their own little thing. I mean, especially like our newer stuff, like we have one that's definitely like more shoegazy, and I don't know, like it doesn't do all the things that we do, but that's okay to me, because I don't know, I feel like it doesn't always have to be like, oh, we do screams and we do synth and it's all here. Like I'm okay with some songs not necessarily representing our whole vibe, if that makes sense. I guess I don't know, like I guess I'm content with being eclectic.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
For sure. See, I I'm telling on myself a little bit, but one of the best things about this show is when I find something that I think a band does really well, I'm sort of like, I need to know how that happens. And like my thing is I don't ever really write like a song to be a song. And I'm fascinated by people who do that really well. And so that's why I'm trying to like how do you do that? How do you decide when a song is done? How do you like how do you make it to where it feels like it sounds like a lot of it is unconscious, like on y'all's part, and so things just come out that way, and that's that's fantastic. But I don't know if you have any thoughts as far as like like
sorry, go ahead.
As far as like what that looks like for y'all, like is there discussion as far as like when you bring the song and it's mostly done, but it's like, no, I feel like we could add a little bit more of like this flavor or whatever? Like, what's that look like for y'all?
I mean, honestly, I feel like for me, sometimes I like keeping it simple. Like, I love a song with like a crazy complicated structure and this and that, but I also like a song that just does the same thing twice. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be like super elaborate. And I think that kind of helps not overcomplicating things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like if a lot of the songs, like I said, I bring something that I made and I'm like, okay, there's like, these are the chords that I came up with. And this is like kind of a little riff, but I don't know, like you can try playing it a little differently and see how that comes out and, you know, add other layers to it. And I feel like when we just play stuff together, we play it enough times and then we just sort of settle into like what each person feels like sounds right to them. And, you know, I don't think we're like afraid to be like, hey, don't do this. Like, I don't know, we'll criticize each other for our choices and what harmony we're doing or whatever. But I think just like doing stuff together a lot, we just kind of settle into what feels right. And then it's like hard to imagine it any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely do change things like from live to recording once we like really sit with it. But I guess it's just, I don't know, like I said, doing it together kind of makes it come together a lot of the time. But there are definitely situations where like, I don't know, a lot of the songs our drummer's written and he's like, hey, here's this song. And it's like, yeah, it sounds good. We don't really need to change it. You know, like,
Yeah.
I guess the one thing I'll do is like, I'll add synth sometimes, I'll add vocals. Sometimes someone else will add the synth or whatever. Sometimes it's hard to figure out like, oh God, this song doesn't even need it, but we like to, you know, we like having it. So we try to figure out how to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have there been any times where you've tried to, like you personally have tried to make something work, like, and you just can't get it to work? Like not to like, you know, be like post your L's or whatever, but like, is there, have there been like, just like, oh, I'm really into this one song that has this kind of thing and you've tried to put your own spin on that, but it's not worked? Like, where do you fall on like how long you'll try that versus like, you know, just move on?
I guess I mean, I definitely have like a million demos on my laptop that I was like trying to make it work and it's like a whole thing, but it's just like not quite feeling right. I feel like that does happen to me. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, there's something salvageable about this. And I'll be like, hey, do you guys have any ideas? But honestly, like, if I don't think something has any chance of like, if I don't think anybody else is going to come up with anything that makes it good, then I'll be like, all right, I'm just going to scrap this. And tons of things are in the graveyard now,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of that for me. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah,
On
I
the
lost my train of thought there.
Oh, that's fine. On the opposite of that, like sort of, you know, where you're saying like you didn't feel like something was good enough to show people. Have you ever shown the band like something that you're a little on the fence about, and then once everybody started playing it, it was like, no, holy shit, this is good.
Yeah, I feel like that way about our one song that is going on our next EP that was more mine. Like I just like I was like, okay, here's some chords. I know I want the synth to do this, but like it doesn't feel that special. And we played it together and then our drummer had this idea. He was like, what if we add this little section and I do this and you play that with me? And then it was like, oh, wait, this is cool. Like, I don't know, it went from being kind of like mid to like, I don't know, he would say, not anymore necessarily, but for a while, he's like, oh, yeah, this is like my favorite Eyewash song now. So it was like, that was like pretty rewarding to see that like, oh, this actually like, we made this work by doing it like a million times, trying different things. Something that could have been like kind of boring, I feel like we made more exciting by like working on it together, which was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I often struggle through that at various points in the recording process, just being like, this is like this. Okay. No, it's starting to sound good. And just being like, wait, is it good though? You know?
Yeah.
And that's something that certainly like having like a lot of other perspectives and stuff helps with for sure. But when you are doing like all your demos yourself and stuff, how do you How do you do that? Do you do like GarageBand, Reaper, voice memo?
Yeah. I will admit I'm guilty of GarageBand. It's just convenient. And since I don't really get to, I don't know, like I've used Logic, I've used like Ableton, but I don't want to pay for that.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes down to convenience. I'm like, okay, I know this sounds like shit, but you guys get the gist. Like, you know what I'm going for here. So like, yeah, I'll just like, use my little interface and it'll sound kind of low quality and scratchy, but as long as it gets to the point where people can figure it out so we can play it together, I feel like that's all I need. I think the rest of my band uses Logic. I'm the only GarageBand guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's come a long way. Certainly from when like I know people that like do their whole recordings in GarageBand and they sound good.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So,
yeah. I mean, it gets the job done.
Yeah. It was wild when I was just like sitting on the couch one day, like, I don't know, I was playing a game or something and one of my kids is like on an iPad and I'm like, what are you listening to? And they were like writing music on GarageBand
cool.
on their iPad. And I was like, whoa, GarageBand can like do all that now? Like you're on your iPad? Like, no, it's...
I mean, I think it's good for people who don't know what they're doing too. Like, when I started out, if I wasn't really sure, I would just like click through the loops and it would kind of give me an idea of like what did and didn't work, even if it wasn't going to be like what the final product was. Like usually with a song, I'll like do one of the like crappy preset drums, be like, and I'll tell my drummer like, don't do this, do something better. Like you come up with the vibe, but this is like the gist of what I want it to be, just because I don't know, like I'm not like an expert on programming drums or anything like that. So kind of like it's helpful, I'll admit.
Yeah. I think it's probably the most accessible, DAW or whatever out there as well, just so it's good for lots of reasons. But yeah, I think that the one thing that I've always had trouble with is like, you're like to the drummer, you're like, play something cool instead, right? But
right.
I've always like, when I hear the drum beat that goes on there, like first, like I'm always like, oh my God, I'm never going to get that out of my head. So like, I always have trouble. Like I'm like always, if somebody wants me to record drums for them, I'm always like, do not send me something with drums on it, please. Like it'll be in my brain. It'll be locked in there and I will never.
Exactly.
But, yeah. So do you like, you'll just put down the drum and you'll just start writing to that. Or sometimes you have the guitar already in your mind, so you try to find something that does that, or a little bit of both?
I guess a little bit of both. I feel like a lot of the time, like I'll come up with like a little guitar or synth thing, depending on the song, and then I'll just like click through until I'm like, yeah, that's like the vibe. That's like what I'm going for, even though it's not like quite right. And I'll like tweak it a little bit, but usually I just like go through a bunch of things because obviously there's so many different like presets and things out there. I mean, sometimes I'll be like, okay, I know I'm going for like more of like I don't know, like a heavier moment or something. It's like, oh, this is like a shoegaze song, so I want like, I don't know, like more minimal drums or something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of depends.
That makes me wonder like how much of your writing is like, I'm gonna sit down and write something, and how much is it something that just comes to you and you're like, I'm going to sit down and record this before I forget?
I feel like for me, at least, a lot of the time I'm like, okay, I'm going to just play around and see if anything I actually want to save comes out. Mm-hmm. Or I'll be like, oh, I heard this chord the other day in a song and I like this chord and I want to try to use it, in a different way. Mm. That's usually how it ends up going for me. I don't know we're trying as a band to get better about like just coming up with stuff on the fly at practice. We're like, since we're not like usually free at the same time as often as we'd like to be, we like keep our practices pretty like focused, productive. Like, okay, we're practicing for this show, or we're practicing for this like recording, whatever. So I feel like we don't do as much like jamming where something just organically comes up, but we're like trying to get to the point where we do that more, since most of the times our songs originate when we're not together. Hopefully we can move towards that more if we
Yeah.
ever have the time.
It probably has a lot to do with like people being more comfortable to share, like ideas and stuff, just like by being in the band for longer. Like, I mean, I don't, I don't know a lot of people that I would just start playing something random in front of. Like, I'm too self-conscious. I don't know
Yeah,
if
me too.
yeah, it's just like,
It's a skill that you develop. I'm still developing it for sure.
yeah. I mean, even though it's like nobody is going to remember that horrible thing that you played
Right.
for like 5 seconds, but like that's in your brain. It's like, that's the thing people are going to remember forever. Like, remember that
Right.
idea? Like, wow, what a shit show,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's how like, just like time and like playing together can create those like, factors that like just make people gel musically and whatnot. But yeah, we've talked about, the EP that's coming up, for a bit. I'm super excited to hear what that's going to be like. But you mentioned like a lot of your practices are like getting ready for shows and stuff like that. So, do you have some shows coming up that you want to put out there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we only have one that's like out and in the open. We're playing Philly for the first time, August 17th, which I'm really excited for. I'm from Philly, even though I live in Pittsburgh now. And I don't really know that many people there anymore. Like, I'm pretty disconnected, but it's going to be cool to get to like go back to where I'm from and play music. That's just been like a goal of mine. So we played like Ohio, we played, Michigan, Illinois, but we haven't really made it out east yet. So it'll be cool to see what that's like, keeping expectations low, but hopefully it'll be fun. Yeah.
Where's that at and who's that with?
So that is at Fumbling Perks, and the bands on it are Monstera, The Last Word, and Lose, I believe, which I don't know any of them personally. Some of them were recommended by friends, so them just happened to be on it. So it'll be like, I don't really know what to expect, but I think it'll be cool just getting to do something new. It's on a Saturday, which is cool. It's like, hopefully people will show up if they know that we're coming.
Yeah.
But,
Are you like you said you hadn't really heard all of the bands. Are you like, I am going to check all of them out beforehand, or are you I'm going to show up and be surprised?
I mean, I did check all of them out, and I was
okay.
like, cool, but
Okay.
I don't like know them personally. Like, I've never seen them play or anything, I guess is more so what I meant. I mean, other shows, since, I mean, I didn't fully put this together. I had like help with Gabby from Head Above Water Collective. I think that's how you say it. And so like, I guess in that instance, she was like kind of like, oh, if you have any bands you want to ask. So like, I like dug around who plays shows in Philly and, asked friends and like listened. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This will fit, In the past though, we've definitely gone into like shows that we played out of the city, especially kind of blind, which ended up like working out really well most of the time. Like, you find someone that you like had heard of, you'd listen to a little bit, and then you see it live and you're like, oh shit, this really changes like the way I view it. And I feel like seeing stuff live, it always like registers more than when I listen to a recording, especially if it's someone I don't know super well.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I get a stronger impression from seeing something live.
For sure. Yeah. It's wild. Like, it's wild the difference that it can make, just like seeing a band live and then like listening to the recording. I remember like we played one of the first shows that Soul Glow played, and
Oh, that's awesome.
and I just remember like that was just bonkers. Like that was just such a incredible amount of energy, and I like did not even go away from that experience having any idea what the band sounded like. I was just like, that was intense. And then, and then when I heard their music online for the first time, I was like, that's what that sounds like. Like what?
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's a good example with them, especially because they're also like so all over. They're awesome though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for sure. It's like, it's one of those instances where you can definitely be like, I thought I knew, but I didn't know, you know, but this was like in reverse. It was not that I had heard them first. But yeah, that's really cool. And I hope your return to your hometown is a lot of fun for you.
Yeah, we're excited.
Is there anything else that you wanted to put out there or chat about before we take off, or?
I mean, not really. We're hoping to keep playing shows in Pittsburgh, and we don't have anything like super in place, but that's good. We're trying to focus on recording. I don't know. I mean, honestly, we covered so many topics. I'm like, I don't know what else I could possibly go on about.
And that was my conversation with Rachel Hines. Thank you so much, Rachel, for taking the time to chat with me. Until next time, go check out middle.man.records over on IG. Check out patreon.com/humanmachine and do good things.